And we are live. It's 8:30. Sorry, folks, I originally posted this that it would be at 8, but I had to delay 30 minutes. So anyway, I'll get started. Share my screen. Screen share. 3 viewers so far. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Just getting started here. Okay. Tonight's topic, flat earth can't geodesy. That's what I'm going to really kind of promote or talk about. Talk about my Facebook group, Flat Earth Can't Geodesy. Let me take a look to see if we have anything going on. Oh, here we go, right here. Hey, Garth. Evening. All right, looks like things are happening. People can see and hear, right? You can hear me, right? All right, so first thing I want to do is talk about this group, Flat Earth Can't Geodesy. It didn't start out with this name, and it's finally I finally arrived at, I guess, my relationship with Flat Earth, and I'm very comfortable now with just presenting geodesy. I mean, originally or initially when I got involved with the Flat Earth, I really thought it was important to help them see and help disprove flat earth and so forth. And as I encountered people in this group and other places on Facebook, looking at the memes, looking at how, you know, how people engaged in calling each other names and so forth, I mean, none of that appealed to me. I really love surveying. I've enjoyed it all my life. I do love what I do professionally. And I just took a real liking to geodesy. So I finally got to the point where I realized that there's no way you're going to convince someone out of a belief that they've settled on without any evidence. I find that most people who claim to believe the earth is flat didn't arrive at that based on examining any evidence, even though they love to say, do your own research. So when you ask them, well, what research did you do? They want to post videos about oh, these guys are at it. That's okay. So anyway, I'm not about that. I don't debate it. And I figured, you know, geodesy is real if you are sincere about believing the earth is flat, and you believe that if you believe in doing research, this shouldn't be off the table. You should take a look at geodesy. It's been here a long time. My page is not all about NASA. I'm not here to talk about NASA. People think that like NASA came up with the shape of the earth. It's just not the case. I mean, geodesy goes back for hundreds of years. There's real history to it, and you should research it. You know, I'm not telling you you should believe it. I'm saying take a look at it. I have seen flat earth videos lately talking about how they've debunked geodesy and how geodesy is fake and everything. And I've listened to them a little bit. And what I find is that they don't even know what geodesy is. They begin with this premise that geodesy is a bunch of mathematics and it force fits the shape of the earth into the math. They have it absolutely backwards, and it's just not like that. Geodesy is all about measurement. It's all about experimentation. It has a long history of experimentation and a whole history of progress. Boy, they're really after each other today. Come on, guys, take a break. I know what they're talking about. So we have a whole history of instrumentation that began in a very crude manner, and as machining, as technology progressed, we get better instruments, we get better lenses, we get better equipment, more refined instrumentation that can measure more precisely. So, but here's the thing, folks. Listen, you can do the exact same thing they did many hundreds of years ago with some string, a weight, and a protractor, because geodesy began with the measurement of latitude. And that's one of the things I want to talk about tonight, measuring latitude. You can do it yourself, and you should. I really think that if you've settled on that you think the Earth is flat, but you've never done any testing of your own, why don't you get with some friends? Either you live in the same town, or how about you live in different parts of the world, and compare your own latitudes and see how they fit on a map of any map you want to look at, even Google Earth, let's say. But it's not a hard thing to do. You can just Google measuring latitude activities, and you will find nice little kits. You can print out a protractor. You get some string, a weight. You can use a straw as a sighting tube. These things are not hard to do. You can do it yourself. You can measure your latitude by looking at Polaris. You can measure your latitude by measuring the altitude of the sun at solar noon. And in that case, you're going to be measuring shadows. Give it a shot. See what you think. But that's where geodesy began, by measuring latitude. They were interested in finding out how many, what the length was between a degree of latitude. Now, this is the description of the group. It's gone through a lot of changes over time, but I'm pretty comfortable with this now. And here's what I'm saying. Flat Earth must reject geodesy irrationally without honest consideration of the evidence. Researching Flat Earth must exclude the examination of the history of geodesy. Geodesy exposes Flat Earth as a nonsensical fantasy and a deceptive cult illusion. Now, Flat Earth piqued my curiosity to see the curvature of the Earth with my own eyes. And I share the results of my observations and my measurements on my YouTube channel linked below. And you're on my channel right now. All are welcome to join this group seeking to question and discuss observation-based evidence. Parroting typical Flat Earth precepts you cannot explain yourself is discouraged. Pasting links to old reruns of the same old memes and the same old videos, repeating the same old Flat Earth claims is getting boring. Step it up a notch. Take your best shot to reconcile the repeatable, observable facts of geodesy with your Flat Earth beliefs. And I think most of these things do come from this guy, Samuel Robotham. So I'm saying bring your Samuel Robotham zetetic astronomy, Earth not a globe beliefs to explain the repeatable measurements observed and recorded for centuries, forming the foundation of geodesy around the world. And occasionally I do share other things in my group, especially things having to do with the electric universe theory. And I do enjoy listening to scientists asking questions about so-called settled science. I've taken the most heat, not from flat earthers. I have to tell you, I have a great interest in science, and I respect people who are searching for answers to the questions of where we live, in the universe on this planet, and so I'm very fascinated by this electric universe theory, and I do enjoy listening to it. So I post things in here, and I take heat for it from people who really are ardent supporters or diehard supporters of mainstream science, and I don't know, things get pretty heated, and I think it's unnecessary. I mean, if you don't like what I'm posting, just pass by it. I guess there's a need by some to want to debate, I guess, and I don't know. I'm not into debating. I can't claim to be an expert in the electric universe theory either. or plasma cosmology and things like that. But it's of great interest, and I think we should be looking at these things. But that's me, and this is my group. So, anyway, I try to be respectful of it and of people in here. I'm not in here to, argue with people about it. And so I had to go ahead and start another group that I call Science Unsettled. And so I throw a lot of the different things that interest me over here. And I'm getting some members in here too. So, but that's a different topic. Here's someone that wants to join. Let's see here. He answered my question. That's good. And you get approved. Pretty much everyone gets approved. I have a question there. I like to see what people will respond and say, but you're welcome. Come on in. And now I do have a pinned post that I think makes a really good point. And I wish people would just think about this a little bit more, or a lot more. And here's what I'm telling you here. All distances, all elevations, all locations are now and always have been determined by surveyors, making the measurements and producing the maps to plot those locations. The appeal I read from flat earthers is for us to return to the basic fundamentals we can trust in order to make evaluations to reach conclusions. Yet when observations and measurements are presented, the flat earthers protest and complain and discount that evidence as flawed in one way or another perspective. It's disingenuous, insincere, and unproductive. You can't have it both ways. If you accept everything you see around you as being really where it is, and you rely on maps and nautical charts or electronic maps and charts on your phone or other device, then you must accept the surveying measurements made to create those maps and charts and the shape of the Earth. Those measurements reveal the Earth to be spherical. Research Geodesy. And this is the book I promote a lot, trying to get people to download this book and reading it. I'm going to show you another link here in a minute where there's lots of books. This is just one that I happen to like a lot. I love the title, first of all. The year that it's written in is great. This is pre-NASA. Look, folks, this is not new. It's old. That doesn't mean you should believe it. That just means it's worth looking at. Take a look at what has gone before us, what people did, and try to understand how they did it and see if there's any validity there. So there's just to kind of run down on the group itself. And you're all welcome. Come on in here. I do post a lot of good stuff. This goes back a good maybe a year or so, and so you can search in here. Look what I said about LIGO. People should. This is one of my favorite things, LIGO. Where's the curve? Everybody keeps asking, where's the curve? Does anybody know that when they built these LIGO facilities, that these, I think they're about 4-foot diameter concrete or steel tubes, and they're about 4 kilometers long, and they had to be straight. And I talk about all this. These things had to be straight. Therefore, the survey methodology had to counteract the effect of gravity in order to maintain straightness. Otherwise, these tubes would have been built and they would have followed the curvature of the Earth, just like any highway, pipeline, or other structure or railway that goes along the surface of the Earth. And you see these memes about railroads and canals and all this, how curvature is not considered. Yeah, no kidding. You don't have to. You want that thing to just follow the grade, and it will, without doing much of anything. I mean, you're really going to just be calculating elevations, and they are going to follow the curvature of the Earth. Believe it or not. I mean, that's up to you to look at that yourself. But this is a unique construction project that they could not let these tubes follow the curvature of the Earth. They had to, and I link the paper, and I know two of the guys that worked on some of these projects and developed the methodologies to make sure these things were straight. Anyway, you could go down in here and you know, search posts going way back. So that's the group. I think that's all I wanted to kind of go over. Oh, let me show you this. I do want to make mention of something else, and I better take a look at the chat. How do you get back to just get that out of there? Just go there. Oh, what am I doing? I don't want to be searching at all. I just want to go to the group. I'm usually doing this on my phone, so I guess I don't even know how to operate this on my computer. I just don't want to look at any of this. There it is. Let's just go there. Here we go. Sorry about that. Anyway, there was a posting in here made today. I'm going to be on Steve McRae's show with Jaron, and this is coming Thursday, and we settled on 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Well, actually, we're in daylight savings time now. I guess we better get that straight. We're in daylight savings time, Steve. But this Thursday, we're going to have a discussion. Me and Jaron, we're not going to debate. I don't want to debate. I'm just going to present what I know about Geodesy and let Jaron, you know, make his points about whatever. We hope to have a conversation, and that's what I'm hoping for. So let's see how that goes. I think we can. So I just wanted to mention that. Now, I want to share some stuff with you that you can use to do some research. You'll see, you know, in my videos, I use a lot of maps showing triangulation and measuring. And this is a site. It's actually a beta site. I normally have to go research these in a more manual way, but I'm glad to see this is available here. So you could, you know, let's see, I'll just pick anywhere. How about up here where George is? George is doing, let's see, where is he? He is in here, up here. Rainy Lake. George Natchik is doing, I think, one of the most interesting projects going right now. Hands down. FE Core has nothing on what George is doing. And he's up in this area. And I keep promoting him as much as I can on every hangout I do. You ought to check him out. But here's how this site works. You can view the PDF, which is a scanned image of this map. And it shows all the geodetic surveying that took place in this region to control the mapping that was done here, all the topographic maps that were made, and certainly any nautical charts up in the lake. And you can see the leveling, which is these dashed lines. Those are second order differential leveling runs. Look that up, differential leveling. Do some research. Now, these are first order level lines, these solid ones. That's the highest order of differential leveling that you can do. And you could take these and just download them, you know, save them. So that's one thing that I think is worth your time if you're going to research this topic. Find out what happened in your region, how did they make the maps where you live? How is it that they are so reliable that you can find your way from one place to another? One of the other things I've started talking about recently when I had Chris Van Matre on was discussing the boundary lines between states, the borders between countries. How are they established? Who did it? How did they do it? You should research that. These are real things. You could take it for granted, but think about it. How does that reconcile with your belief that the earth is flat? Someone should bring that forward. Let's hear about how that works. I'll just close that one. So this is a site I just wanted to share with everyone tonight. You can go here and look up the maps in where you live. Okay. Well, for the United States, I shouldn't be so United States centric. Obviously, this is just one source for maps. If you live in Canada, you're going to go to the Canadian resource for that. And I didn't look up every place in the world tonight, but you can find maps like this where, pretty much wherever you live. The times that I had to work in South America, I had to go and actually buy the control maps in a local store. So actually there were topographic maps that did show some control points. I did some work down here in Lima. That was funny too. When I came down here to Arequipa and all this, I did not realize I was actually in the same time zone of where I live. I just had it in my mind. I thought I was way over here, but you're actually in the same time zone. It's interesting. So yeah, wherever you live in the world, you can get maps, certainly topographic maps showing all the land features, the mountains, the contours of the elevations. And again, think about it, folks. All these flat Earth videos showing mountain ranges, talking about islands. Let's look at these over here. There's all these flat Earth videos discussing Santa Cruz and so-called islands and land features you should not be able to see. And why do you say that? You say that because you have a misunderstanding. You don't know what you're talking about. They can see. Look at all these lines. All this triangulation took place. Let me zoom in a little bit. Oops. Zoom in a little bit. If you want to believe this is a fantasy and someone just drew all these with just for the fun of it, I don't know. I just can't see how you can dismiss this. This happened when I meet with Jaron on Thursday night. He did a video called Holy Geodesy, and he talks about doing some measuring from San Francisco to San Diego. Well, I've done some research for him. I've gone ahead and gotten the triangulation diagrams, and I also got the reports of the triangulation describing who worked on it, how they did it, how long it took them to do it. This happened. It actually really happened. And you should consider these things. Look into these things. So here, anyway, here's this. These are sight lines. And these were done by people occupying these brass discs with a surveying instrument, or sometimes they were done from Bilby steel towers, tall towers. I do like to show this to people. You're going to keep seeing me talk about this, but again, it's worth considering. This is the effort that they went through. This is what they did. And they erected these towers, some of them 100 feet in the air, to put the surveying equipment up there and measure the angles from one to another. A lot of time, most of the time, these observations would take place at night. Like here, you've got a light operator sitting on top of this tower, And the surveyors were down here with their instrument. And then way far over this way, maybe 10, 20, 30 miles away, might be another Bilby steel tower with surveyors on that one sighting these guys. And so they would do these arcs of triangulation, as shown on this map. Where am I? This one. Yeah, now I've got the map open. Did I? Yeah, this map. I think I already had it open. But anyway, you get the idea that you should look these maps up where you live. You can actually go find these marks. And a lot of geocachers, recreational GPS enthusiasts love to go find these marks. And, it's a lot of fun. So it gives you a destination to go try to find something and recover it. All right, so I wanted to show you that. I think that's covered. Go look at the chat. Where is look at me. How do I lose my browser? Oh my God. I already had this open. Here we go. Hi, all. How am I doing? Oh, they're having their own fun there. That's fine. Okay, the next thing. Okay, so I've shown you the Bilby steel towers. The next thing is this link. I want to share this with you. Look this up. It's really interesting. I've done a lot of downloading of PDF books, out of print books, and I came across this as like a treasure trove of really nice material from, 1800s and so forth, of maps and reports and books all about the mountains in Central Asia. So I'll show you this in a second. Let's look at the survey of India. I mean, it's got everything you could want to see. How did they do that? How did they do all that triangulation? How long did it take? All these reports are here, handbooks and manuals. It's fantastic. I'm not going to say stupid shit. I was going to say, I mean, if they're all wrong, if they did this wrong and they've got the maps all wrong and the elevations are all wrong, because why? Perspective. We got to start over. So we're waiting for the flat earthers to make a map. Do you need some help? How do you want to do it? How should we do that? How should we make a map of the earth, of the flat earth? We should get started, And so I wanted to show you this, and especially the Geodesy books. The first one here is 1807, Investigating Terrestrial Refraction. We hear about refraction all the time. We've been studying refraction for a very long time. So get acquainted with these things. It's worth your, if you're interested in these things, you should get acquainted with these things. Now, 1906, here's the book that I talk about all the time, The History of the Determination of the Figure of the Earth from Arc Measurements by Butterfield. This is not where I got my original copy. I found it on like Google, out of print books, Google Books, whatever. But it's here. It's a good source to find it and get it. And quite a lot of other books, especially books by Clark. He is one of the guys who took all of the triangulation that was done up to his time in the late 1800s and did the calculations. Yes, he's the one who made some of the early spheroids, the model. I'm talking about the model. I was like grasping for the word model. You got to realize the model comes second. You don't start with the model. You don't like imagine that the Earth is round and then create a model and then go out to prove that it is. That's not what happened. There was a great desire to know the shape of the Earth. What was the shape of the Earth? And in the 1700s, they thought it was egg-shaped. It was a flattened ellipsoid, a spheroid, but they didn't know the orientation. Some thought it was prolate, and others said it was oblate. And they actually went out and proved. They sent an expedition to Peru, and they sent an expedition up into northern Europe, up into Lapland. And I think it's worth noting, I emphasize all the triangulation so often. Triangulation is worthless unless you measure a baseline. So you can measure these angles, but you can't calculate anything unless you have a distance. And so I hope that this is going to show, like here, you're going to see, you can measure to a remote object. If you have this measurement, you can calculate the position of something by triangulation. But what I wanted to show you was the early method. Today we take it for granted. We just measure things electronically with total station instruments that can measure, using light, the speed of light, and we get that measurement. Oh, what am I looking? I love this map. Stop it. I want to show you how they did it with wooden bars. So I need more words in my search. And here's a sketch of triangulation. They'll measure this length, and then they'll measure all these angles. Really, the very far distances, but they'll only measure several miles of a length and then calculate the rest. But they'll measure baseline on one end of the arc of triangulation and then a baseline on the other end as a check. Why am I not finding a picture of these measure bars? All right, I won't waste too much more time. I'll find it. Triangulation, baseline measurement. How about the history of it? Well, we got the towers, the early towers here. Here we go. Here we go. Finally finding something here. These wooden bars would have to be laid end to end, and they would have to do this for miles after mile after mile. So this is not the greatest picture of it, but here's an apparatus. Here they go. They would build these. This thing would be moved along. Here's an apparatus for measuring distance. So I took the time to try to find this just now because it occurred to me while I'm on this Hangout that I'm always talking about the measurement of the angles. In other words, they would put a theodolite here and measure the angles far, far away to other pillars erected really far away. So you can research all that, the history of the meter and how it comes about. and all the measuring of angles. But I wanted to mention the fact that it takes some measuring of distances too. And so there's a lot more. I know I could dig up more pictures. I'll do that another time. I'm not going to belabor it. But so you get the idea. You have to measure a length in the triangulation network. And they'll measure several. They'll measure one at the beginning, maybe one in the middle somewhere, and then one really far away. Here they are measuring with a tape. I don't know if you could see that. But this is steel tape. So this came later, okay? And they would build these types of platforms to pull a steel tape, and it was made of Invar, so it has a very low coefficient of expansion, just makes the device more reliable. You still have to account for the growth and shrinkage depending on temperature, but these tapes would be pulled very tight in order to measure a baseline. And so anyway, I wanted to at least make you aware of that. So again, look at the effort people went through. So I wanted you to have this. Enjoy. I mean, you're going to find maps in here, really nice maps of India, maps of Mount Everest, how they determined the height of Mount Everest. So I'm in the books section. I know there's a section on maps. Oh, here's the maps. KMZ files. Wow, I haven't even explored that. There's probably some really cool stuff in here. Mountain maps. Let's check that out. Let's pick the first one. See what it looks like. You could really, oh, it's downloading it. Doggone it. I just wanted to look at it. Mount Everest. All right, I'll download this one and we'll just look at it real quick. Oh, it's big. You could, man, if you had time on your hands, you could really delve into all this. I barely have time. Yeah, so, but I have included some maps in some of my videos about, getting across the idea that a lot of surveying has taken place over the decades, over the centuries. And I've shown maps of Mount Everest, the Himalayas actually, being determined by triangulation. Mount Everest and the group of Chomoma. All right, so here we see contours. So that means, it's either triangulation or it's going to be barometric pressure, barometer style of measuring heights and elevations and altitudes. So anyway, you get the idea. Someone had to do all that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is research and experimentation. And I even suggested this to Chris Van Matrie. I told, he's out there in Utah working with Taboo Conspiracy to do some leveling and some testing of his own. And I told him, you could go out tomorrow and do this for yourself. Just make your own little testing area. I've set up 4 points in a park near to where I live. And I've measured all these angles. And I've measured all these distances. I've measured the elevations between all these points. And, this is not huge. This is This is not affected by refraction because these are very short distances. The effect of refraction could be measured, but it's going to be very minimal. So it's not something you could say would be the reason for what I'm going to show you right now. But let me move this over here. And here's what I did this really quickly just before coming on air. I talk about this a lot, what's called reciprocal zenith angles. So this would be the vertical angle measured between any of these points. So like from 1 to 2 and back from 2 back to 1. If the Earth were flat, the vertical reference would be parallel everywhere. But it's not, and it isn't by an amount that we find to be consistent wherever we go. So in this case, it's about 4 arc seconds between 1 and 2. What's the distance there? That's under 400 feet. Roughly, you find that it will approximate about 1 arc second per 100 feet at my latitude of anywhere between 39 to 40, Okay, here's 1 to 3 going this way, 4 seconds. Now, 1 to 4, it's a bit longer length, and it's north-south. You're going to have you're going to see it the most along the meridians. You got about 8 seconds there. All right, it's about 600 and some feet. And then 2 to 4, the longest line on this. It's about 8 seconds again. It's, just rounding off. Now, any surveyor can do this. I'm not going to say that every person can go get an instrument and do it. You might be able to. I mean, there's a lot of skill involved in learning how to set these instruments up, making sure they're set up correctly. But certainly any surveyor that doubts whether or not the Earth is round can find this out for themselves. Even without doing a test like this, you could look at the work you do each day. If you do any traversing, if you were out here traversing from 1 to 4 and then, let's say you were out here working, you had to traverse here and you came down here and you came over here and you were surveying around this whole piece of property. Every single setup, if you look at the reciprocal zenith angles between the 2 points, they are going to be greater than 180 degrees. And guess what? Look what it corresponds to. This is the main thing I want to show you. We put this over here. We'll put this like this. Move this over here. Okay, watch these latitudes and longitudes. If I'm at 1, here, you know what I'll do is, whoops, don't do that. Put this down here. Okay, so if I'm at 1, there's the latitude and longitude there. And as you come over here to 3, the difference between those 2 latitudes and longitudes is going to be very close to that arc second measurement. All right. If I go from 1, here's the latitude and longitude. See it? Come on down here. That will approximate 8 seconds. And from here to here. So that's how it works. It really does. And, it's not made up. And you don't have to force that. You can measure it. It's for real. That's the geodesy lesson for tonight, folks. I'm going to go look at the chat now. See if there's anything I can answer. Where do I want to be? I want to be here and go here. Hey, Andrew. Andrew's making some good videos. Love it. Love what you're doing, Andrew. Let's see. I want to, I'll end with another shout out to George. I sent George the link to see if he could come in tonight, but he's out there working. I'm not kidding you, people. Really get onto this man's channel. Look at what he's doing. He just gave us an update 2 days ago. There's no one doing what George is doing. I'm not seeing it. If anyone knows of something more interesting than what George is doing right now on that frozen lake, you know, let me know because I want to see it. He's on a very thickly frozen lake. He drives out on it with snowmobiles or his vehicle. He's erecting survey targets at several mile spacings. I think the furthest one will be about 6 miles. And when the whole thing is set up and ready to go, he will go and bore holes in the ice at each station to let the water come up so he can get an accurate measurement to the water surface and then conduct all the measuring that he's going to do. And I'm hoping to get out there and visit him maybe in April. That's my plan, is to fly up there, get out on that ice and meet George and maybe video and, you know, maybe do a hangout or two or, you know, promote what he's doing because it's really worth looking at the care that he's taking in his approach. So, yeah, go see George. Go see George's site. Oh, this is cool. He's got this laser mounted on top of his theodolite. And you're going to see some returns. My last couple videos, I wanted people to see this. He's measuring out to a surveyor's retroreflector. He's getting a lot of laser back. Let's see. Anyway, let's see what's going on in the chat, and I think I'll be saying goodnight here momentarily. And I keep doing the Alt tab, and all I had to do was come over here. All right, y'all. I'm going to say goodnight. I'm a bit tired, kind of rambling here. Check out my Facebook group, Flat Earth Can't Geodesy. Everyone's welcome. Come on in. And hopefully some of the information I shared tonight you'll find useful and of interest. So, all right, I'm going to just say good night. See you, John. Thanks for stopping by. Don't leave. What? All right, I'm out. Hey, don't forget, Thursday night on the, is it the Non Sequitur channel on Steve's site, and I'll be talking to Jaron. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for, sorry, I'm going to say good night there. Bye.